I have Chrome loaded, and in that I've got that file 01_date.html, which, if you remember, imports and links to the file of the same name, 01_date.js, the JavaScript file. So I'm going to open the debugger, and I can do that by going to the View menu, Developer, and Developer Tools, or with nothing selected, I can right mouse click and choose Inspect Element. By default, this is the inspector. Elements is the tab shown. We've already looked at network, which shows you any files loaded. I need to reload the page to see that. We've looked at console, which will tell you if you have any errors. But in this short video, we're going to look at sources, which is what we'll use to debug things. Now, Sources tab has 3 panes to it. This one, which shows all of the source files. This one, which shows the content of these source files, or rather more accurately, the HTML, the JavaScript content of those source files. So on this file, that's the code that contains it. And then this pane shows us various bits of information about this. Now, a lot of these we won't use at the minute. Breakpoints we will, I'll explain that in a minute. Scope variables you will later. But scope variables only work if we have something called a function, which we don't have at the moment. Call stack, we won't use it all at the moment. Okay, so let's see something happen. If I single click in the grey margin here, then I've set something called a breakpoint, and that opens to tell me that I've done that. And a breakpoint is a point where if we run the code will break or stop at that point. So just close that tab to save space, and I'm going to reload the page, and what you'll see happen is as the computer gets to that line of code, it breaks, it stops execution, and it highlights that line of code. Right, let's look at a few things along the way. If this were inside something called a function, we'd see that variable called output declared there, but it's not. So in actual fact it will be declared under this thing called global, but global contains all sorts of stuff that's built into the browser. So there's likely to be more wood than trees if you you won't be able to easily see what output is. So let's use this thing called watch expressions. I'll click there and I'll write the word output. Hit enter. And at the moment that's undefined. You can see that for ourselves. If I just hover over the top of it, it also says undefined. Because that line of code is not yet executed. We're on that line of code, it's not yet run. Okay, I want to step forward to the next line of code. There's 2 ways to do that. I can click on that, step over function, or click on that, step into function. Now, at the moment, since we haven't written any functions, and indeed you probably don't even know what a function is, it makes no difference which of those we use, so I'm just going to use the first one. I'll go to the next line of code. Now, that means that line 2 is just executed, so now output has a value. Indeed, we can see it here as well. So that's a quick way of keeping track of something. So output, what does it equal? Well, it equals what I've told it to equal. In other words, this bit of text here, which is known as a string, because it's in quotation marks, plus whatever this thing, and this is actually a kind of function or a method, it's also called in some context, and that tells us what the date is. So output now equals the date is my string plus what that functional method returns to us. Notice nothing on the screen yet because that line of code is not yet executed. If I click and execute that line of code, you'll suddenly see that that's appeared on the screen. So the debugger then, if I click on that, it will just run to the end and the debugger will finish. So the debugger then allows me to stop the code at any point, click and watch it execute step by step. Now, I can't stress enough how useful this is. It's useful both to understand how code works, how it goes into if statements, how it loops around while statements, how it does all sorts of things that you would find utterly vital. But it will also, most importantly, help you solve those errors which aren't syntax errors, which you spot in console, but they're logic errors because the program runs perfectly well, it just doesn't do what you expect it to. So please use this and make it your friend, so to speak. Thanks a lot.